I have been wanting to do this video for a very long time. We're going to be talking spurious emissions with my Baofeng UV-5R. And I enlisted the help of my club, North Fulton Amateur Radio League. I reached out to the club on our forums and asked if anyone had the knowledge, expertise, and equipment to test my Baofeng to see if it actually put out spurious emissions. And Don graciously answered, offered his time and equipment and expertise to help me test. Thanks, Don.
You're welcome.
Your call sign?
N2VGU.
N2VGU, yeah. So thanks, Don, for coming. And he brought his DSA-815 spectrum analyzer. And what we're going to do today is we're going to see if my Baofeng is within FCC regulations for spurious emissions. This should be very interesting. Let's get going. If you've seen any of my previous videos on the Baofeng UV-5R handheld ham radio, you know I'm a fan. I've done SOTA activations with it. I use it for some satellite work. I mean, I take it out. It's a great radio, and it's the one that got me into the ham radio hobby. At $25 or less for a dual band handheld, it seems like a great value, except it's not without its controversy. The Baofeng UV-5R draws a lot of controversy, mostly around the fact that it's cheap, and its detractors say that it's cheaply made and creates spurious emissions. When you're transmitting, you set the frequency. Spurious emissions will also transmit on frequencies outside of that. The FCC says that any radio outputting 25 watts or less and transmitting up to 225 megahertz, spurious emissions cannot exceed 25 microwatts and must be at least 40 dB below the fundamental transmission. That's what we're going to be looking for today to see if my Baofeng fits within those guidelines of the FCC Part 97. So what am I going to do if my radio fails? Well, I'll have to say that the detractors were right, that a cheap radio like the Baofeng can put out spurious emissions that exceed the FCC allowance. And I'll have to stop transmitting with it. That's going to be sad. So Don was kind enough to bring his spectrum analyzer, the tool required to measure
Spurious and harmonic emissions from the radio. We're going to be transmitting from the radio through an attenuator, which will lower the power to a power that's acceptable for the spectrum analyzer. You can't just put 5 watts right into the analyzer. So this will drop it down sufficiently that we can transmit it to it without damage. And we'll measure the power of the carrier coming out and its harmonics and any other spurious that come out.
All right, and where are we going to set the frequency on the radio?
I suggest 146.52 simplex frequency.
It's not going out anywhere anyway, is it?
No, but just makes it easier. You have to figure the offset. Now I'm going to set the resolution bandwidth to a lower setting, which will get this noise level down further. 30 kilohertz should be good. Just takes a slower sweep.
Now what we should see is the primary transmission.
Should be right at the top.
Right at the top, and then the extras will pop up, the harmonics will pop up, and that's out of spec.
Right.
So there's at least 4 measurable harmonics.
Right. What I'll do is I'll set it to single sweep, so it'll hold that. Okay. So now we don't have to keep continuously transmitting.
Yeah.
All right. So.
Wow.
37.29 dBm, which is a little over 5 watts.
Mm-hmm.
So your power is okay there, but you can see that the first 3 harmonics are above the minus 16 dBm line. So we can put markers on that.
It's equivalent to, because the FCC regulations say, what was it?
25 microwatts
is which
minus,
is 16 dBm.
Minus 16 dBm. So we can set up another marker. We're setting markers on the first 3 harmonics and putting a marker table so we can read out what the markers are.
Okay.
So the marker 1 is at the transmit frequency, that's 37.29 dBm, which is a little over 5 watts.
Right.
The second harmonic is at minus 11.85 versus spec of minus 16. The third harmonic is at minus 6.94 versus minus 16, so that's almost 10 dB out. And the fourth harmonic is at minus 15.48, which is very close to being in, but still out.
So my Baofeng UV-5R is outside of, well, it's creating spurious emissions outside of the specification FCC puts forth.
Right, harmonic emissions, actually.
And you tested your Baofeng and it had similar results?
I did, yeah. So
Very
it's
good.
a different model Baofeng, but
Same.
same kind of results, yeah.
Can we test my Kenwood?
Absolutely.
I tested my Baofeng and it failed. I've got my Kenwood TH-D74. It is set up to 146.52, and we're going to test that. Would the frequency that we tested the Baofeng on, would it matter much?
In general, it doesn't. It could, but probably anywhere in the 2 meter band is going to be pretty much the same.
Yeah, not too much between 142.
I wouldn't expect it.
Yeah.
You know, we might go to the high end of the band and take a look. It could be a little better, but you can't tell. We'll key this.
Same settings.
Same. It should be about. It's 5 watt.
Wow.
Talkie, right? Yeah.
Yeah, what a difference.
Let me just do a single sweep here. And yeah.
Well, there's a difference between a $500 radio and a $25 radio.
Right. That's well within spec. As a matter of fact, the harmonics are pretty much in the noise.
Yeah.
I could zoom in closer, but I think the point's been made.
Yeah, so where you would expect the harmonics on this radio would be right where the 2, 3, 4 is, roughly, right?
Yeah.
And you can't even see it.
Right.
Well, I have to say I'm a little disappointed. I'm not shocked.
I'm not surprised.
I'm not surprised, but I was hoping mine would pass. Have you ever tested one that passed?
I've only tested my 2 Baofengs and yours, and all 3 have been pretty much similar. I wouldn't. They probably use the same guts.
How long ago did you buy yours?
2 years ago or so.
2 years. I wonder if the newer ones, what do you think? I mean, with the injection of cash, selling a ton of them?
We were discussing that at lunch, and people say that they may have improved them. I know they almost got banned from selling them.
Well, technically they are.
They're,
Because they can transmit on FRS and GMRS,
Right.
so they're in violation of Part 95, which means that they're illegal to import and sell.
right. Now, there's nothing that say that you as a ham couldn't put a low-pass filter on there and filter those harmonics out. It might be a business opportunity for somebody.
Wow, all right. Well, again, no surprise that the Kenwood passed, and I guess no surprise that the Baofeng failed. And pretty badly, too. I mean, it wasn't like it was close.
Yeah, I don't see the other spurious that are a problem. People have said they see spurious at other frequencies, but I'm just seeing the harmonics, which is kind of expected. Expected you'd see them, not that they'd be that high level.
Yeah, so essentially every radio will put out some harmonics,
It probably
Possible.
would, but the better radios filter it out effectively,
like the Kenwood.
like the Kenwood.
I guess I won't be transmitting with it anymore. It'll be listen only until I can find one or buy one or put a filter on that allows me to transmit.
Well, or might be able to work it on low power. We can always test that.
Want to?
Yeah.
Let's test that.
Okay.
So we were just discussing my ignorance around dB and dBm. Can you explain the difference?
Sure. dBm is dB reference to 1 milliwatt. So dBm is a power level. dB is a difference in power, either higher or lower. But it's one power versus another one is dB. dBm is a power level.
Gotcha. So we're setting my Baofeng to low power, same frequency, 146.52, and we're going to test. Low power is about 1 watt, you said?
31 dBm, so it's about 1.2 or something.
And we set the limit again at
It's still minus 16 dBm, but it also needs to be 40 dB below,
That's right.
right? So you got 31 minus 40 is minus 9. So these are all below minus 9.
So they're all out of spec.
They're in
Just-
spec. They're just below. This would here right here is 40 dB. It's 10 dB per division.
Gotcha.
So minus 9. They need to be below minus 9. So they are barely, but the third harmonic is above the minus 16. So that one's out as well.
So even on low power, this one's out of spec for transmitting.
Correct.
Mm.
Yeah, on one harmonic.
We're going to test UHF next.
We could test UHF, although I wasn't able to find a spec for that. I'm going to assume that the spec is, we'd want the spec to be the same, right? Good practice.
Good practice. So we're testing UHF high power with the Baofeng at frequency 446, the national calling frequency. And the result is
Very close.
very close, right on the edge. And again, the FCC doesn't specify spurious transmissions above 220 megahertz, but best engineering, we're assuming the specifications would be very, very similar, especially at 5 watts.
So this is marginally okay.
Yeah, marginally.
Right.
And would probably pass on low power.
We can always take a look at that.
Let's try it.
All right. Okay, very interesting. The third harmonic is worse on low power.
So we set it to the one or just over 1 watt setting. And again, we can't see the fourth harmonic because it's outside of the range of this analyzer. But we can see the second and the third is out.
Yep.
That is interesting, and it's higher than the second.
Yep. That's the way they have the power amplifier set up.
All right, so fail all around. No transmitting with that unit.
Yep.
So Don, my Baofeng is done. I can't transmit with it anymore because it's outside of FCC regulations.
Well, as I said earlier, you could see if you can find a low-pass filter to clean up those harmonics, and you should be good to go.
Or I could buy 2 or 3 more and see if I find a good one in the batch.
You could do that. The way things are built today, they're probably going to be very similar.
I bet you're right. But my Kenwood, the more expensive radio, passed with flying colors.
You can always use it to receive.
That's true. I can listen with this to nets or whatever I'm listening to, weather, and use my Kenwood to transmit.
Yep.
Well, this has been really, really interesting. Thanks for bringing your spectrum analyzer and your knowledge. And I have to say, while I'm not totally surprised, I am a little disappointed because I love my Baofeng. I've made lots of videos and made a lot of contacts with it. It's rugged, sturdy, but unfortunately it puts out a dirty signal. Thanks for watching.